10 serial killers who were shockingly released from prison early. Welcome to Odd Occasions, where we uncover the strange and disturbing sides of true crime. Today, we're diving into a topic that's as shocking as it is unsettling. Serial killers, who despite their heinous crimes, were released from prison early. For most, a conviction like theirs means life behind bars. Yet, these individuals manage to find freedom sometimes with horrifying consequences. From legal loopholes to questionable parole board decisions, these cases reveal disturbing gaps in the justice system. Join us as we count down 10 notorious killers who walked free, shocking the world and leaving scars that still linger for the victims' families and entire communities. Number 10. Karla Homolka. Canadian serial killer Karla Homolka and her husband, Paul Bernardo, terrorized Ontario in the early 90s. Together, they committed horrifying acts, including the rape and murder of at least 3 young women. One of their victims was particularly heartbreaking. Homolka's own sister, Tammy, just 15 years old, was drugged with animal tranquilizers and choked on her own vomit while unconscious. A twisted gift from Homolka to Bernardo. After their arrest in 1993, Homolka claimed she was an unwilling accomplice, acting out of fear, believing she'd be killed if she didn't comply. Her testimony was critical for the prosecution's case, and as a result, she was offered a plea deal, receiving only a 12-year sentence. But new evidence surfaced later. Videotapes, proving that Homolka was more than just an unwilling participant. Those tapes showed a far darker, willing side of her involvement in the crimes. In 2007, Karla Homolka walked free. She moved to Quebec, where she remarried, and had 2 children. Today, her presence still ignites outrage and fear. She reportedly volunteers at a school in Montreal, raising concerns among parents who are horrified by her past. As one woman, known only as Lily, told Breakfast Television Montreal, "We don't want her here. How would you feel, knowing your child interacts with a person who is a serial killer? It's not right." Number 9. The Lane's Angels of Death. In Austria, 4 nurses, Waltraud Wagner, Maria Gruber, Irene Leidolf, and Stefania Meyer, earned a terrifying nickname, the Lane's Angels of Death. Between 1983 and 1989, these women took the lives of 49 patients at Linz General Hospital in Vienna. The hospital itself was massive, the 4th largest in the city, with over 2,000 staff members. Wagner, working in the special care unit, committed the group's first murder by injecting a patient with a lethal dose of morphine. That first killing was just the beginning. Wagner soon recruited 3 more nurses, and they each began carrying out their own twisted acts. Their methods were cold and calculated. Patients were given fatal doses of morphine, insulin, and tranquilizers. It was a game to them, an appalling abuse of their trusted roles. In February 1989, the group's sick game came to light in an unexpected way. A doctor overheard them laughing in a bar, bragging about their latest murder. That disturbing overheard conversation led the doctor straight to the police. Once arrested, the group confessed. Waltraud Wagner was convicted of 15 murders, and Irene Leidolf of 5. Maria Gruber and Stefania Meyer received lighter sentences for manslaughter, and were released after only a few years. In 2008, Wagner and Leidolf were also released, both changing their names to escape the notoriety of their past. As former Austrian Chancellor Franz Vranitzky put it, their crimes were the most brutal and gruesome in Austria's history. Number 8. Charlene Galo. In the late 1970s, Charlene Galo, together with her husband, Gerald Gallego, left a trail of terror across Sacramento, California. This twisted couple kidnapped and ultimately murdered 10 victims, who they first kept as captives for their own unspeakable purposes. Charlene had already been married twice by the time she met Gerald, leaving her second husband because she found him too boring. But when she crossed paths with Gerald, it was a match of deadly proportions. Their connection was instant, fueled by a shared appetite for brutality. Their horrific spree began with a dark strategy. They targeted young girls at shopping malls, charming them into entering their van. Once inside, the nightmare would begin. Bound, tortured, and later murdered, these innocent young lives were discarded, their bodies either dumped or buried. By 1984, Charlene was facing justice, at least partially. She pleaded guilty to murder and received a 16-year prison sentence. After her release, Charlene moved to Fair Oaks, California, and changed her name, perhaps trying to escape her horrific past. Gerald, on the other hand, never saw freedom again, passing away from cancer while awaiting execution. In a haunting interview after her release, Charlene reflected on the horror of her actions, saying, "I see the murders every day. I always see it. It never goes away. There isn't one more than the other. They're all horrible, horrible memories. Every single one." Number 7. Nikolai Zhumagaliev. In 1979, Nikolai Zhumagaliev began a nightmarish spree in the Kazakh SSR, now Kazakhstan. His first victim was a woman he grabbed from the street, where he proceeded to slit her throat and drink her blood. Zhumagaliev later confessed, chillingly, "I always loved to hunt, often went hunting, but this was my first time hunting a woman." That same year, a violent altercation escalated when he shot a colleague following a drunken argument. This crime led to his arrest and a mental health evaluation at Moscow's Serbsky Institute, where he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Due to this diagnosis, Zhumagaliev received a reduced sentence for manslaughter, serving only a year before regaining his freedom. Once released, Zhumagaliev's crimes grew darker. He went on to kill 9 more victims, even using their remains in grotesque dinner feasts with friends, serving human flesh to unsuspecting guests. But in 1980, his horrifying acts reached a breaking point. He invited several friends over, and during the gathering, he murdered one of them, dismembering the body in a nearby room. His remaining guests discovered the scene, fled in terror, and called the police. When authorities arrived, they found Zhumagaliev in a disturbing sight, on his knees, naked, smeared in blood, holding a hatchet. Inside his home, they uncovered more horrors, including the severed head of a woman. Deemed too dangerous for a regular prison, Zhumagaliev was sent to a high-security mental clinic in a village near Almaty. Even today, he resides there, working as a repairman. Number 6. Yuha Valjakala. In 1988, 23-year-old Yuha Valjakala and his girlfriend, Marita Rutalami, were passing through Åmsele, Sweden. That night, Valjakala stole a bicycle, a seemingly minor crime that would turn into a horrific tragedy. When the bike's owner, Sten Nilsson, and his 15-year-old son tracked Valjakala down at a local cemetery, he felt cornered. Rather than surrendering, Valjakala pulled out a shotgun, killing both father and son in cold blood. The horror didn't end there. When Nilsson's wife, worried for her family, came searching, Valjakala cruelly led her into the woods and took her life as well, slitting her throat. With 3 lives taken, he and Rutalami went on the run, crossing borders until they were captured in Odense, Denmark, a week later. At trial, Valjakala and Rutalami pointed fingers, each accusing the other of initiating the violence. A psychiatric evaluation labeled Valjakala a psychopath with extreme aggression and he was sentenced to life in prison. Rautalami, however, received only 2 years for her role in assault and battery. In 2009, however, the Supreme Court of Finland ruled for his release on a suspended sentence. He emerged from prison with a new name, Nikita Bergenström. Reflecting on his past, he said in an interview, "I wasn't meant to kill anyone. The situation just got out of hand." Number 5. Sybrand Louis van Schoor. In the early 1990s, Sybrand Louis van Schoor earned a chilling reputation as South Africa's deadliest serial murderer. A former policeman turned security guard, Van Schoor worked the night shift in Cape Town, responding to silent alarms in local businesses. Over 3 years, he shot and killed 39 people he encountered during these calls, with his 9mm Parabellum pistol. His victims were largely black or mixed-race individuals, raising serious concerns about racial profiling and brutality. For years, Van Schoor operated without consequence. The authorities did not issue a single warning, as he was technically within legal bounds, deemed justifiable under security protocols. However, as the toll of his actions mounted, families of the victims pushed for justice. They filed complaints that ultimately led to his trial. The Supreme Court convicted him of 7 murders and 2 attempted murders, sentencing him to Fort Glamorgan Prison in East London, South Africa. In 2004, after serving only 12 of his 20-year sentence, Van Schoor was released. Upon his release, he held a press conference, expressing gratitude for his freedom and asking the public to leave his past behind. He addressed his victims' families with a brief apology, saying, "To the families and friends of my victims, I apologize if my action caused any hurt and discomfort." He added, "I have done my time." Number 4. Arfin Nesset. In 1977, Arfin Nesset became the head nurse and manager of a large nursing home in Sør-Trøndelag, Norway. But by 1981, suspicions began to grow as an unusual number of elderly patients, ages 67 to 94, were dying unexpectedly. When police questioned Nesset, he made a shocking confession, admitting to the murder of 27 patients by injecting them with the muscle relaxant drug succinylmethonium chloride. Initially charged with 25 counts of homicide, Nesset later retracted his confession, claiming he had been pressured by investigators. The case led to a grueling 6-month trial, during which Chief Prosecutor Olaf Jakkeln described Nesset as an ambitious man who wanted complete control over life and death of his victims. In 1983, Nesset was found guilty of murdering 22 patients. The jury also convicted him of embezzlement, as he had swindled elderly patients out of roughly $1,300. However, investigators suspected the true number of his victims to be much higher, potentially 132 innocent lives. Due to Norwegian law, Nesset's sentence was limited to a maximum of 21 years. He was released after only 12 years for good behavior, and now lives somewhere in Norway under an assumed identity, his true whereabouts unknown. Number 3. David McGravy. In 1973, David McGravy earned the terrifying nickname the Monster of Worcester after committing a brutal and senseless crime. McGravy murdered 3 innocent children, ages 4, 2, and just 9 months old, children he was meant to be caring for. When questioned by investigators, he claimed he killed them because they wouldn't stop crying. In a horrifying act, he then impaled their tiny bodies on a neighbor's fence, an image that left an indelible scar on the community. The children's mother, who lives in Hampshire, England, has openly expressed her belief that McGravy's sentence was far too lenient. She told the BBC they said he was going in for life, and then they changed it for a minimum of 20 years. He took 3 lives, not just 1 or 2, 3. To the shock of many, McGravy was released in June 2019. The parole board justified their decision, saying the panel will have carefully looked at a whole range of evidence. including details of the original evidence and any evidence of behavior change. We do that with great care, and public safety is our #1 priority. A psychiatrist's assessment claimed he was no longer a danger to society, citing his improved self-control and his ability to remain calm in stressful situations. Now, this triple child killer walks free, living somewhere in the UK under strict supervision. Number 2. Samid Pang. In 2007, Samid Pang earned the ominous title Jack the Ripper of Thailand after brutally murdering 5 women. His victims, all nightclub entertainers and masseuses, were killed in cold blood. Despite his horrifying crimes, Pang was sentenced to life, but later released early, deemed a model prisoner. But freedom brought no reform. Just 7 months after his release, he struck again. This time murdering a hotel maid named Rasame Mulishand. Pang had charmed his way into Rasame's life by pretending to be a lawyer. She trusted him enough to let him move into her apartment, and was even planning to marry him. Tragically, the date they were supposed to marry, December 15th, became the day she lost her life. Investigator Colonel Kajornrit Wangrat recounted, she told her daughter and neighbors that she was going to marry the man. The boyfriend went missing on that day too. Following her murder, a manhunt ensued, with a 50,000 baht reward offered for any information. Pang's freedom was short-lived, as 2 students recognized him on a train in the Nong Sarai district, leading to his rearrest. Now, it's believed he will remain behind bars, this time for the rest of his life. Number 1. Pedro Lopez. Colombian-born serial killer Pedro Lopez, infamously known as the Monster of the Andes, has a record so chilling that it defies belief. Lopez's life of crime started with car thefts, leading to his first prison sentence, but his time behind bars would change him irrevocably. After being violently attacked by fellow inmates, Lopez sought vengeance, stalking and killing those who had assaulted him. Once freed, Lopez unleashed his darkest urges, targeting young girls across Peru. Eventually, he was apprehended by a native Ayachuco's community who planned to execute him for his brutal crimes. But fate intervened when an American missionary pleaded for his life, convincing them to hand him over to state police instead. In 1981, Lopez was convicted and served 14 years in Garcia Moreno prison in Peru. Astonishingly, he was released early for good behavior. Upon his release, he moved first to Ecuador and then to Colombia, where his killing resumed at an even more horrifying rate, reportedly 3 victims a week. By his 3rd arrest, Lopez's murder count had reached unimaginable heights, over 300 lives taken. Police only believed the extent of his crimes after discovering a massive gravesite containing many of his victims' remains. In 1998, in a move that still baffles many, Lopez was declared sane and released on a mere $50 bail. Today, his whereabouts remain unknown. Thank you for joining us on Odd Occasions. If today's video left you as stunned as it did us, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime insights and mysteries. And we want to hear from you. Do you believe these individuals should have ever been allowed back into society? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, sometimes even justice takes turns that no one can predict.